The chamber of the Galactic Council was a place of immense and quiet power. It was not loud. The light came from the very walls and floor, a soft blue-white glow. In the air, there was a smell like ozone and clean metal. The council members sat in a wide circle, high above the floor where those who wished to speak had to stand and look up. These members were not human. There was Prelate Vlar, who looked like a moving statue made of dark, polished stone. Its voice sounded like two rocks grinding together. Next to it was Ambassador Lauren, a being of swirling gas contained in a graceful, glass-like suit. There were others, too. A species with 4 arms and eyes that glowed green. Another that looked like a large, intelligent plant. They were all old, wise, and strong. Their civilizations had sailed the stars when humans were still learning to use fire. In the center of the floor, one figure stood alone. He looked very small. His name was Kim Jun. He was the human ambassador. Jun was a man of average height, with dark hair that was neat and short. He wore a simple suit. It was a plain, gray color. It had no special lights or moving parts. It was just cloth. He held his hands loosely at his sides. His face was calm. He had gentle eyes. To the council, he looked incredibly fragile. His skin looked soft. His bones seemed thin. He had no natural armor, no claws, no toxic spines. He was just flesh. For the last 6 months, June had come to this council. He had asked for the same thing politely each time. His homeworld, Earth, had a region called the Amazon Basin. A galactic mining corporation, run by one of the council species, wanted to harvest rare minerals there. The process would destroy the entire region. It would turn a living, breathing forest into a dead hole in the ground. June argued for its protection. He spoke of biodiversity, of ecological balance, of beauty. The council listened, but they did not understand. To them, a planet was a resource. A forest was just inefficient organic matter. Sentience was what mattered, not trees. Today, June finished his latest speech. He had used logic. He had used the council's own laws. He had shown them pictures of the forest, the rivers, the animals. The council members shifted in their seats. They were bored. Prelate Vlar, the leader, spoke. Its stone mouth did not move, but the voice came out clear and cold. Ambassador June, your passion is noted. However, your petition is denied. The mineral resources are of strategic importance. The needs of the wider galactic community outweigh the sentimental value of a primitive biome. June did not frown. He did not shout. He simply nodded slowly. I understand the strategic importance, he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried in the silent room. But have you considered the long-term cost? Life is a rare thing in the universe. To destroy it so completely is not progress. It is short-sighted. Another council member, the one who looked like a plant, rustled its leaves. It was a sound of dismissal. Life adapts or perishes. It is the universal law. Your world's life will not adapt to our machines. Therefore, it perishes. The law is clear. June looked at each of them one by one. His gaze was not angry. It was sad. It was the look of someone who sees a great mistake being made and cannot stop it. You speak of universal law, June said, his voice even quieter. But you only know the laws of physics and power. You do not know the laws of survival. Not true survival. Not the kind forged in total solitude. A ripple of annoyance went through the council. The human was speaking in riddles now. He was wasting their time. The decision is final, Prelate Vlar stated. The mining operation will begin in one of your planet's cycles. This audience is concluded. June stood perfectly still for a moment. He was alone on that wide, glowing floor, surrounded by giants who held his world's fate in their hands. He had no weapons, no allies, no threats to make. He finally bowed. It was a small, respectful motion of his head and shoulders. I understand, he said again, but then he added something else. His eyes met the dark, stone holes that were Prelate Vlar's eyes. But you do not. He turned and walked out of the chamber. His steps were soft and made no sound on the floor. The large doors, big enough for a starship, slid open for his small form and then closed behind him. Inside the council, the members communicated without sound for a moment. Their thoughts flickered through the network that connected them. The human is persistent, thought the gaseous Lauren. He is emotional. Weak came the thought from the forearm general. Their kind is all like this. They break under pressure. Prelate Vlar processed the data. The human's defiance was illogical. It served no purpose. Perhaps the general was right. Perhaps humans needed a clearer message. A demonstration of their place in the galactic order. Not death, of course. That would be an overreaction. But a correction. An accident that would show the human his fragility. It would make him more agreeable. Or it would break him. Either outcome was acceptable. A plan formed in the council's collective mind. It was simple. The station's maintenance systems were flawless. But a small, targeted energy surge could be arranged in the garden spire where the human ambassador took his daily walk. It would be painful but not lethal. The medical report would speak of a tragic malfunction. The human would spend weeks healing, understanding his own vulnerability. He would cease his annoying petitions. It was, the council agreed, a practical solution. They did not hate Kim Jun. They barely thought of him at all. He was a small, soft thing that was causing a small, soft problem. They would apply a small, soft lesson. They gave the order. Far from the council chamber, in his small, bare quarters that were too cold and too empty, Kim Jun looked out a window at the stars. Earth was a tiny blue dot, lost in the sea of darkness. He thought of the forest, the sound of rain on leaves, the smell of wet earth. He thought of the crushing silence of space and the long, lonely history of his people in it. A deep, ancient part of him, a part he kept locked away under layers of calm and gentle words, stirred. It was always there, sleeping. It was a dark and quiet ocean beneath the calm surface of his mind. The council's dismissal, their arrogance, was a small pebble dropped into that ocean. The ripple was almost nothing. But the ocean was very, very deep. June turned from the window. He would walk in the garden spire tomorrow, as he always did. He would give them one more chance to be better than they were. He knew, in his quiet human heart, what they would choose instead. He hoped he was wrong, but he rarely was. The garden spire was the most beautiful place on the entire Galactic Council station. It was a long, curved tube of clear crystal that reached out from the main station like a slender finger. Inside, the air was warm and carried the smell of growing things from a dozen different worlds. Strange, colorful plants with leaves like jewels or flowers that hummed softly lined the winding path. A small, artificial stream trickled over smooth, black stones. For Kim Jun, it was the only place that felt somewhat peaceful. It was the closest thing to a park. He walked there every day at the same time. It was a habit, a human need for routine, the council observers thought. They watched him from hidden sensors, their view perfect and clear. They saw a small, lonely figure in a gray suit, moving slowly past the alien beauty without really seeming to see it. He looked thoughtful, sad even. Today the walk felt different to June. The air was the same. The hum of the flowers was the same. But the silence behind it was not. The station always had a quiet hum of power, of machines, of life support. Today that hum had a different taste. A slight, sharp edge to it, like the smell of lightning before a storm. June noticed it. He noticed everything. It was his job to notice. He paused by a plant with large, silver leaves. He reached out a hand, as if to touch one, but stopped. He simply looked at his own reflection in the glossy surface. He saw his own face, calm and ordinary. He saw the gentle eyes that the council mistook for weakness. Behind his own reflection, deep in the polished leaf, he saw a slight shimmer in the air near a decorative light panel on the ceiling. 50 meters down the path. It was not a flaw in the crystal. It was the briefest distortion of a cloaking field. Someone or something was hiding there. Watching. June's face did not change. He lowered his hand and continued his walk. His heart beat a little faster, but his breathing stayed even. This was it, then. The lesson. He had hoped, foolishly, that they would be more creative. that they would use politics or lies or legal tricks, but they were old and old, powerful things often chose the simplest tool. Force. He walked closer to the section with the light panel. The stream was here, bubbling over a little waterfall. The sound was pleasant. He stopped on a small bridge made of a single piece of milky stone and looked down at the water. In the council's security room, Prelate Vlar watched the screen. The four-armed General Kthar stood beside it. "The conduit is ready," Kthar said, his voice a low grumble. "A level 3 plasma discharge. It will burn, cause significant tissue damage, and require extensive regeneration therapy. He will not forget the pain." "Proceed," said Vlar, its stone face showing no emotion. On the bridge, June waited. He counted in his mind. 1, 2, 3. There was a loud crackle from the light panel. A hidden energy conduit, overloaded by a remote command, burst open. A fist-sized bolt of blue-white plasma, hot enough to melt steel, shot out. It was perfectly aimed. It struck Kim June directly in the center of his back. The force of the impact was violent. It threw him forward off the bridge. He did not cry out. He made no sound at all. He landed on the soft, moss-like ground near the stream with a heavy thud. His gray suit smoked where the bolt had hit. The smell of burnt cloth filled the air. He did not move. In the security room, there was a moment of quiet satisfaction. "Direct hit," said General Kthar. "Biological signs are spiking, then dropping. He is unconscious. Severe shock. Perfect."
Prelate Vlar watched.
The small human body lay still. It was over. The message had been delivered. Medical drones were already being dispatched. They would scrape him up, fix him, and he would wake up understanding the new reality. The council turned its attention away, already thinking of other business on the garden path. The medical drones, small floating discs with gentle blue lights, hummed as they approached. They extended delicate metal arms to lift the injured diplomat. Then, Kim June moved. It was not the movement of an injured man. It was not a groan of pain, a twitch, or a struggle to rise. It was a single, smooth, uninterrupted motion. One moment he was a crumpled shape on the ground. The next he was standing on his feet. The drones stopped, their programming confused. They scanned him. The scan results made no sense. The suit was damaged, but the tissue underneath. The scan could not get a clear reading. It was like trying to scan a hole in the world. June stood straight. He brushed a bit of moss from his sleeve, a slow, deliberate gesture. The smoldering spot on the back of his suit went dark, as if the heat had been sucked back inside. He turned his head and looked directly up at the light panel, and at the cloaked observer behind the security room. The screen showing the observer's feed suddenly filled with a close-up view of Kim June's face. His eyes were open. They were no longer a warm brown. They glowed with a faint, cool white light, like the heart of a distant star. There was no anger in them, no pain, only a deep, impossible calm. He spoke. His voice came through the observer's audio pickup, but it was wrong. It was still his voice, but it had a resonance now, a vibration that felt like it was inside the listener's bones. "Why?" he asked. The single word hung in the air of the garden and the security room. Panic, cold and sharp, shot through the security room. General Kthar took a step back.
Impossible.
The plasma charge was definitive.
Prelate Vlar stared.
The logic of the universe was breaking. A level 3 plasma discharge should have reduced that soft human flesh to a ruin. "He is standing," Vlar stated, the obvious fact sounding like madness. On the screen, June took a step toward the hidden observer. The observer, a skilled technician from a species with chameleon-like skin, felt a terror he had never known. He was perfectly cloaked. There was no way the human could see him, but June was looking right at him. "Containment breach," Vlar said, its grinding voice urgent now. "This is a malfunction of the human, a biological hysterical strength. Send the Kroth. Detain him for his own safety. Use minimal force." The order went out. Alerts flashed. The gentle peace of the garden spire was about to be shattered by the arrival of the station's most feared security force. But for now, it was just Kim Jun, standing quietly on the path, his eyes like pale lanterns in the dim, beautiful light, waiting for the guards to come. He had asked his question. He had not yet received an answer. The silence in the garden spire was total. The humming flowers had gone quiet. The trickle of the stream seemed muffled. Kim Jun stood on the path, a still point in the center of the unnatural calm. The faint white light in his eyes cast soft, long shadows behind him. He was waiting. He could hear the station reacting. He did not hear it with his ears. The sound was a vibration through the floor, a shift in the electronic hum of the air. Heavy doors unlocking far away. The clatter of armored feet moving in unison. The Kroth were coming. He looked down at his hand. He turned it over, studying it. The skin looked normal. It looked human, but he could feel the difference. It was like waking up from a deep, deep sleep. The quiet ocean inside him was no longer still. It was rising, wave by wave. To meet the world that had just struck him, he had not wanted this. For his entire life, he had practiced keeping the ocean down. His mother, Lee Hannah, had taught him how. She had gentle eyes too, but hers held a sadness his did not. She remembered the last time, long before June was born, when a human had been pushed too far. She called it the unfolding. It was not a story told to children. It was a warning, whispered in safe rooms. "You are a diplomat, June," she had said, her hands on his small shoulders. "Your words are your lock. Your calm is your key. Never let them see the storm. They will not understand. They will only see the terror." He had used his words. He had been calm. They had not listened. They had seen only flesh to be burned. And so the lock was broken. That a deep, resonant clang echoed through the spire. The main entrance doors, 20 feet tall and made of reinforced alloy, slid open. The Kroth entered. They were massive. They stood 8 feet tall on thick, reverse-jointed legs. Their bodies were covered in thick, gray-green scales that also served as natural armor. They wore heavy combat plating over their chests and shoulders. Their faces were like a lizard's, with yellow eyes that held no warmth. They carried ionic stunners, weapons that could paralyze a star whale. They moved in a perfect, spread-out formation, 6 of them, their steps shaking the floor. Their leader, a Kroth with a scar across his snout, stepped forward. His voice was a guttural growl, translated by a speaker on his chest. "Human Kim Jun, you are experiencing a biological crisis. You will come with us for medical assistance. Do not resist." Jun looked at them. He saw not warriors but fear. They were afraid of the unknown, of the thing that did not follow the rules. Their weapons were raised, but their posture was tense, unsure. "We learned," Jun said. His voice still had that strange, bone-deep resonance. He used the word "we" not for himself alone, but for all of humanity, for the long, silent chain of survivors that led to him. The Kroth leader did not understand. "You will lower yourself to the ground. Now." Jun did not move. He simply stood. He was giving them one more chance. A chance to walk away. They did not take it. The leader barked an order. "Neural dampeners to full. Subdue him." A Kroth at the back activated a large boxy device. A visible wave of purple energy pulsed out from it. It was designed to overwhelm any nervous system, to cause immediate unconsciousness. The wave washed over the plants, making them wilt momentarily. It washed over Jun. It did nothing. Passed through him as if he were not there. The faint light in his eyes did not even flicker. The Kroth leader's yellow eyes widened. "Fire stunners. Low yield." The 5 other Kroth raised their weapons. With sharp cracks of released energy, bolts of concentrated ionic force shot across the space. They were designed to disrupt cellular function, to cause total muscular paralysis. The bolts never reached him. They stopped. In midair, about a foot from Jun's chest, the 5 brilliant blue energy bolts simply hung there. They vibrated, suspended. Then, like candles being snuffed, their light drained away. The energy winked out into nothingness. Empty air fell to the ground. The garden was silent again, but now the silence was thick with dread. The Croth stared. Their weapons were still pointed. Their tactical screens showed a complete energy negation event. It made no scientific sense. June took a step forward. It was not a threatening lunge. It was a slow, patient step, like a man beginning a quiet walk. Containment Protocol Alpha. The leader roared, his fear turning to fury. Physical engagement. Hold him. Two of the largest Croth dropped their useless stunners and charged. Their claws could tear through ship hulls. Their strength could bend metal. They moved with shocking speed for their size. The first one swung a massive, clawed fist at June's head. June did not dodge. He did not block. He let the fist come. The Croth's claw stopped an inch from June's temple. It did not hit an invisible shield. Instead, the Croth warrior screamed. It was a raw, agonized sound. The black, polished claws on his hand began to change. They lost their sharp, glossy sheen. They turned dull, then gray, then crumbled into a fine, rust-colored dust. The decay spread up his fingers, turning the tough scales into dry, flaking powder. The warrior fell back, clutching his disintegrating hand. His screams filling the spire. The second Croth tried to grab June from behind. The moment its hands touched the fabric of the gray suit, the same process began. The powerful arms that could crush stone withered and fell apart like ancient paper. The Croth stumbled away, howling in confusion and pain. June continued his slow walk. He was heading toward the entrance, toward the station beyond. He passed the Croth leader. The leader stood frozen, his weapon shaking in his hands. He looked from his crumbling soldiers to the small, glowing-eyed human. June paused beside him. He looked at the Croth's weapon, a complex piece of technology powered by a microreactor. He reached out a single finger and touched the barrel. The effect was instant. The polished metal turned a sickly green, then rotten brown, and fell apart in a cascade of corroded flakes. The power cell inside gave one last weak spark and died. June looked into the Croth leader's terrified yellow eyes. "This is not an attack," June said, his resonant voice quiet. "This is an answer." He walked past the broken security team, through the giant doors, and out into the bright, sterile hallway of the main station. Behind him, in the garden, the Croth were not dead. They were wounded, their weapons and their confidence in ruins. Their technology had failed. Their strength had meant nothing. The human diplomat was no longer in the garden. He was loose on the station, and he was no longer pretending. The main hallway of the Galactic Council station was wide and gleaming. The walls were a smooth, pearly white. The light came from everywhere and nowhere. It was a place of order, of clean lines and silent efficiency. Beings of many species moved here and there on their business, their steps soft, their conversations hushed. This calm was shattered by the sound of the garden spire doors opening. All activity stopped. Every eye turned. Kim June walked out into the light. He looked the same as he always had, the same gray suit, the same slight build. But he walked differently. Before, his walk had been quiet, careful. Now it was steady and certain. Each footstep made a soft, definite sound on the floor, and his eyes glowed with that impossible pale light. The station's creatures stared. A being with 6 delicate legs skittered back into a doorway. A floating orb of gas contracted in fear. They all knew Ambassador June. They saw him as harmless. Now they did not know what they saw. Alarms began to sound. They were not loud, blaring sirens. They were a gentle, chiming melody, followed by a calm voice in multiple languages. Security incident. Clear central corridor. Proceed to designated safe areas. The crowd vanished, melting into side passages and rooms. In moments, the long, white hallway was empty except for June. He stood still for a moment, looking down the endless curve of the station. He knew where he needed to go, back to the council chamber. The walk there would be a message in itself. From the ceiling, hatches slid open. Dozens of small, spherical security drones dropped into the hallway. They were made of polished silver metal. Each had a single red glowing eye. They hovered in the air, forming a wall between June and the rest of the station. A mechanical voice echoed. "Ambassador June, you are compromised. Please stop moving. A medical team is en route." June looked at the wall of drones. He did not stop. He continued walking forward. The drones reacted. Thin needles extended from their bodies. They fired a cloud of tranquilizer darts. Each dart contained enough sedative to drop a large animal. The cloud flew at June, a storm of tiny, sharp points. They never touched him. A foot away from his body. Every single dart stopped. They hung in the air, vibrating. Then they dissolved. The metal needles turned to gray dust. The liquid inside evaporated into a wisp of mist. It happened in complete silence. The drone's red eyes blinked rapidly. Their programming searched for a response. They switched tactics. Blue energy beams lanced out from them, cutting lasers used to slice through debris. The beams struck the space where June was, and bent. The light did not hit him. It warped around him, like water flowing around a smooth stone in a river. The beams hit the floor and walls behind him, leaving black scorch marks on the perfect white surface. June was untouched. He kept walking. The wall of drones was directly ahead of him now. He did not slow down. He walked right into them. Where his body passed, the drones did not explode or crash. They simply died. Their red eyes winked out. Their polished silver shells lost all shine, becoming a dull, leaden color. They dropped from the air like dead insects, hitting the floor with soft, heavy thuds. They did not shatter. They were just inert lumps of dead metal. June stepped over them. He did not look back. In the council security control room, panic was no longer quiet. It was loud. Prelate Vlar watched the main screen, its stone body absolutely still. General Kthar was shouting. "Nothing works. Energy is negated. Matter decays on contact. What is this?" A psychic council member was there too. Her name was Leah. She was from a species that looked almost human, but with hair like fine, white silk and large violet eyes. She was a telepath and empath. She could read the emotions of any being in the station. She had been brought in to understand the human's mind. She had been silent, her eyes closed in concentration. Now her eyes flew open. They were wide with pure terror. "I tried to touch his mind," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What did you see?" Vlar asked, its grinding voice urgent. Leah wrapped her arms around herself. She was shaking. "Not a mind, not like ours. It is a place. Cold, dark, quiet place. I saw, I felt." She struggled for words. The long silence, millions of years of it, alone, in the dark, with nothing but the cold and the hunger and the fear. She looked up, her violet eyes full of tears. They were prey, Vlar, for so long, not to us but to their world, to disease, to each other, to the void itself, their pain. It is an ocean of solitude. That does not explain this. Kthar roared, gesturing at the screen where June walked calmly through another security door, the door itself crumbling to dust at his approach. "It does," Leah cried. "Don't you see? They did not grow claws. They did not learn to shoot energy. What is the one thing that survives everything? That endures through cold and darkness and pain?" Vlar understood first. The logic was terrible, but it was logic. "The void itself," the prelate said slowly. "They internalized the void. They made it a part of them." Leah nodded, a frantic, jerky motion. "It is a defense, the ultimate defense. To survive a universe that hurts, they became a thing that cannot be hurt, a thing that makes other things stop." On the screen, June had reached a large, circular plaza in the center of the station. It was a meeting place with benches and strange sculptures. It was also a major junction. From here, many hallways led to different parts of the station, including the council chamber. Waiting for him in the plaza was the entire Kroth security force. Not just 6 but 30. They were in full riot formation. They had brought heavier weapons, energy cannons mounted on tripods, sonic projectors. They had created a barricade of force shields, a shimmering wall of blue light. The Croth leader with the scar was there, his ruined hand wrapped in a medical gel. He looked at June with hatred and fear. "Human, this is your final warning. Stop now." June stopped in the center of the empty plaza. He looked at the wall of soldiers, the glowing shields, the powerful weapons. He looked very small. He spoke, and his resonant voice filled the vast space, carried by the station's own systems. "I am going to the council chamber," he said. It was not a threat. It was a simple statement of fact. "You cannot stop me. Please, do not try again." The Croth leader snarled. "Fire everything." The plaza erupted in light and sound. Energy beams, sonic waves, projectile nets, a storm of force designed to level a building flooded towards the single, still figure. And it all just ended. The energy vanished. The sound died. The nets fell apart as dust before they even landed. The blue force shields in front of the Croth flickered, dimmed, and went out. The power packs on their backs hissed and died. The silence that followed was deafening. June began to walk towards the barricade. The Croth stood frozen, holding dead weapons. As he came close, their armor began to crack and flake. The very air around him seemed to drain the life from their technology. He walked through their line. They did not attack him. They could not. They could only watch in helpless dread as the small human with the starry eyes passed by them. Heading down the hallway that led directly to the council chamber doors, he had asked them not to try. They had. And they had learned what true stillness felt like. The hallway to the council chamber was the most impressive on the station. It was long and straight with a high, arched ceiling. The walls were made of a dark, polished stone that showed the history of the galaxy in moving lights. It was meant to make any visitor feel small, to feel the weight of history and power before they entered the most important room in known space. Kim June walked this hall alone. His soft footsteps echoed against the stone. Behind him, the plaza was a scene of stunned silence and broken technology. Ahead of him, the great doors to the council chamber were closed. They were huge, made from the fused metal of 100 conquered worlds. They were meant to be imposing. They were meant to be final. He felt the eyes on him. Every sensor in the station was now fixed on his form. The council was watching. The entire station was watching. They were waiting to see what he would do. Would he demand entry? Would he attack the door? June stopped a few feet from the doors. He did not raise a hand. He did not speak a command. He simply stood there, looking at them. Inside the council chamber, the mood was one of cold panic. The screens showed June's calm face, his glowing eyes fixed ahead as if he could see right through the metal. The council members were no longer in their circle. They had gathered near the main viewer, their forms tense. "Seal the chamber," General Kthar barked into a communicator. "Full lockdown. Activate every energy shield in the door's structure." "It will not matter," Lia the telepath said quietly. She was seated on the floor, her head in her hands. "The door is a thing. He is the end of things."
Prelate velar vacht.
Its stone mind was racing through calculations, through every piece of data. The human was not attacking. He was waiting. For what? On the screen, June spoke. His voice came through the chamber's speakers, clear and resonant. "You invited me here to speak," he said. "I have come to finish my speech." He took a step forward. He did not touch the door. He did not push it. He simply continued his walk, as if the door was not there. And for him, it wasn't. The moment his body should have made contact with the polished metal, the door began to change. It did not explode. It did not melt. It aged. Centuries of wear happened in a single second. The proud, fused metal lost its shine. It became dull and pitted. Then it turned brittle. Cracks like spider webs raced across its surface. Then, where June walked, it crumbled. It fell apart into a fine, gray powder. Like sand, he walked through a cloud of dust that had been the symbol of the council's unbreakable will. The powder settled on his shoulders and hair, making him look like a ghost walking out of a ruin. He did not brush it away. He stepped into the council chamber. The chamber was vast and quiet. The blue-white light glowed from the high ceiling. The council members were across the wide floor, a group of stunned and powerful beings, watching him enter through a hole in their security. June walked to the center of the floor, the same spot where he had stood so many times before. He left footprints in the dust that had drifted in with him. He stopped and looked up at them. For a long moment, no one spoke. The council saw the same man, the same suit, the same face, but the light in his eyes made him a stranger. The dust on him made him look ancient. Prelate Vlar was the first to find its voice. "What are you?" The grinding tone was gone, replaced by something hollow. June considered the question. "I am Kim June. I am the human ambassador." "You are a weapon," General Kthar shouted, one of his 4 hands pointing a shaking finger. "No," June said, his head tilting slightly. "A weapon chooses to strike. I am a reaction. You assaulted a diplomat. You triggered the reaction." Lia stood up from the floor. Her violet eyes were wide, fixed on June. She spoke not to him, but to the others, her voice filled with awe and horror. "He is telling the truth. It is not anger. It is not hate. It is a law, a biological law, like a hand pulling back from a fire. Their whole species. It is a hand pulling back from the fire of existence." June looked at her. He gave a slow, small nod. She understood a little. "Explain," Vlar demanded, not a command now, but a plea. June took a breath. The pale light in his eyes seemed to pulse softly. "Your people learned to build walls against the dangers of the universe. My people learned to become the wall." He looked at his own hand, turning it over again. "For millions of years, Earth was a cradle of terror for us. We were soft. We were slow. We were sick. We died from the cold, from a scratch, from a tiny creature too small to see. We were not the hunters. We were the hunted. By everything." He lowered his hand and looked at them all. "So we changed. Not on the outside where you can see. On the inside, where it matters. We faced the silence of extinction, the cold of oblivion, for so long that we absorbed it. We made it ours. To survive a universe that breaks things, we became a thing that cannot be broken. A thing that, when pushed, makes the push stop." "The quiet?" Lia whispered, remembering the feeling from his mind. June nodded. "We call it the quiet. It is always with us, sleeping. For most humans, it sleeps forever. We live, we love, we build. We are what you saw before, fragile, emotional, kind. That is our true face. But underneath is the deepest ocean of solitude there is. You did not attack a human today. You attacked the loneliness of a species that thought it was alone in the dark for eternity. And that loneliness is a void. And a void cannot be harmed." General Kthar looked at his own powerful hands, then at the dust of the great door. "So this is your defense? You destroy." "I do not destroy," June corrected gently. "I unmake. There is a difference. Destruction is violent. This is just an end. A return to stillness. It is what we learned to do to the things that tried to end us. We end them first, quietly." He took a step closer to the raised platform where the council stood. They did not retreat, but every one of them tensed. "I came in peace," June said, his glowing eyes on Prelate Vlar. "I asked for peace for a part of my world. You chose to test a theorem. You chose to see if pain would make me quiet." The pale light in his eyes brightened, just for a second. "Now you see, we are always quiet. We are the quietest thing you will ever meet." He stood before them, small and covered in dust, and in that moment he was the most terrifying thing any of them had ever seen. Not because he threatened, but because he simply was. He was the living proof that their power, their technology, their ancient wisdom meant nothing against the simple, terrible will to survive. The council chamber was so silent they could hear the faint hum of the station's power core, miles below. The dust from the great door still hung in the air, catching the blue light. Kim June stood in the center of it all, a still point. The pale glow from his eyes lit the motes of dust around him like tiny stars. Prelate Vlar finally broke the silence. The stone body leaned forward. This? Quiet. Can you control it? June's answer was simple. Yes, I am controlling it now. If I were not, this station would already be a drifting ghost of stripped atoms. I am holding an ocean back with a thought. It is what we do every day so we can be people. So we can talk as we are talking now. The idea was horrifying. The being before them was a lid on an abyss, and his politeness was the only thing keeping the abyss closed. You said unmake, said the council member who looked like a plant, its leaves trembling. What does that mean for us? Now? June looked around the chamber, at their fearful faces, at the symbols of their power. It means you have a choice. You have always had a choice. You just thought your power made the only choices that mattered. He gestured with one hand, a slow movement. The dust in the air swirled gently. You see my real form as terrifying. I see yours the same way. A council that rules by strength, that corrects others with pain, that sees a living world and thinks only of what can be taken from it. That is also a kind of terror. General Kthar, his forearms crossed tightly over his chest, growled. Are you judging us, human? No, June said. I am showing you a mirror. You tried to burn a lesson into my flesh. The only lesson learned is yours. You now know what we are. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Lia, the telepath, stepped forward. She moved slowly, as if approaching a sleeping predator. Her white hair seemed to glow in the strange light. Your mind, the loneliness there, it is not angry. It is so sad. Her violet eyes were wide with a new understanding. You don't want to fight. You never did. June looked at her, and for the first time his expression softened. The pale light in his eyes dimmed, just a little.
No.
We never do. Fighting is loud. We are so tired of loud things. We just want our forest. We want our home to be safe. Is that so hard to understand? His words, so simple and human, struck the council more deeply than any display of power. He was, even now, just a man asking for his home to be left in peace. The terrifying power was just the reason they finally had to listen. Prelate Vlar processed this. The logic was inescapable. The human's power was absolute, but his demand was minuscule. He did not want their territory. He did not want their technology or their surrender. He wanted one single forest on one little planet. To deny him was not just illogical. It was suicide. Not a violent, fiery suicide, but a quiet one. A slow, unstoppable unmaking. The mining decree, Vlar said, its grinding voice soft. It is revoked. Permanently. The Amazon basin of Earth will be placed under galactic sanctuary protection. No industrial activity will be permitted. Now or ever. There was no vote, no discussion. The other council members simply nodded. It was the only sensible thing to do. June bowed his head. Thank you. The words were the same he had used before, but now they held the weight of truth. But this changes everything, said the gaseous being, Lauren, its form swirling anxiously. Humanity, you are a threat. You must understand that. How can the galaxy function with a species like yours in it? June finally moved. He took a few steps, his hands behind his back. He looked like a teacher now, a patient one. We are not a threat. We are a condition. Like gravity. You do not call gravity a threat. You learn its rules and you live with them. He turned to face them. Our rule is simple. Leave us in peace and we will be peaceful. The gentle, fragile people you met first, that is our preferred state. That is who we truly are. This, he said, gesturing to his own glowing eyes, is just biology, an old scar that learned how to protect itself. He let the silence hang for a moment, letting them absorb it. The terror you feel is your own. You see a power you cannot control, and you fear it will be used against you. We have felt that fear for millennia, looking at the uncaring stars. We have no desire to make you feel it too. He took a deep breath, and as he exhaled, the pale light in his eyes began to fade. It dimmed, like a star being veiled by cloud. The strange pressure in the room, the feeling of a deep cold, began to lift. The glow receded, shrinking back to nothing. Leaving his eyes their familiar warm brown, he looked tired. He looked human. The dust on his suit just made him seem like a man who had been through a long and difficult journey. "The projection, as you called it, is easier," he said, his voice now entirely normal, soft and slightly hoarse. "It is more sociable." The transformation was complete. The terrifying entity was gone. Kim Jun, the slight human diplomat, stood before them again. But no one in the chamber would ever see him as just that again. They had seen the ocean beneath, and they knew its depth. "So," Jun said, brushing a bit of dust from his sleeve, "where does this leave us?" "With a treaty, I hope. One based on truth this time." Prelate Vlar looked at the human, then at the hole where its great door had been. It saw the past, present, and future all at once. The old way, the way of strength and subtle force, was over. At least with this species. A new way had to be found. A way based on respect, not because it was good, but because the alternative was a quiet, absolute end. "It leaves us," Vlar said slowly, "with a new beginning, and with a great deal to discuss. Ambassador Jun, would you care to sit? We have much to talk about." It was an invitation, not from a position of power, but from a position of newfound, wary understanding. Kim Jun smiled. It was a small, gentle, human smile. "Yes," he said, "I would like that very much." They did not sit in the Grand Council circle. That space felt wrong now. Instead, they gathered in a smaller, private meeting room adjacent to the main chamber. The room had a simple table and chairs made of a warm, wood-like material from a peaceful world. The light was softer here. Prelate Vlar, Lia, and two other senior council members sat on one side. Kim Jun sat alone on the other, a service drone. A simple machine with no weapons brought them drinks. Steam rose from a cup placed before Jun. It was tea, prepared to a human recipe the station's files had on record. The simple act felt like a peace offering. Jun wrapped his hands around the warm cup. He looked tired, the kind of deep tired that comes not from physical work, but from holding a great weight for a very long time. The pale light was gone from his eyes. He was just a man again, sitting with giants. "The sanctuary status for your Amazon basin is being encoded into galactic law now," Prelate Vlar said. Its stone fingers tapped the table, making a soft clicking sound. "It is permanent. No entity will challenge it." Jun nodded. "Thank you. That is all we wanted." "But it is not all we must consider," said the council member who looked like a plant. His name was Elder Root. "You have shown us a truth that changes the balance of everything. How do we proceed? Do we tell the other species?" Jun took a sip of his tea. He thought for a moment. "That is your choice. But consider this. If you announce humanity as a terrible secret weapon, you will create fear. You will make others want to test us to find a weakness. That would be a very bad for them." Lia shuddered. She had felt the depth of that badness in his mind. "What do you suggest?" Vlar asked. "We continue as we were," Jun said, putting his cup down. "But with honesty. You know what we are. We know what you are. Let that knowledge be the foundation, not for fear, but for respect. You treat our world and our people with the dignity you would offer any powerful civilization. And we will continue to be the diplomats, the scientists, the artists you first met. The quiet, fragile people. That is not a lie. It is our preference." General Kthar, who had entered the room and stood by the door, grunted. "And if someone attacks your people? Some pirate or fool who does not know?" Jun's face grew very calm. "Then they will learn, and you will not have to worry about them anymore. We are not conquerors. We are cleaners. We remove threats, quietly. It is what the quiet does. It does not seek conflict. It ends it." The room was silent. They understood. Humanity would not police the galaxy, but any threat that touched them would cease to exist. It was the ultimate deterrent, and it required no action from them at all. "So we pretend?" Elder Root rustled. "No," June said, shaking his head. We just live. You live by your rules. We live by ours. Our main rule is simple. Be left alone. Help us keep that rule, and you will find us the most peaceful, cooperative neighbors you could imagine. The incident today happened because you broke that rule. Do not break it again. His words were not a threat. They were the plain truth. A law of nature, like he had said. Prelate Vlar leaned back. He saw the path forward. It was not the path of power it was used to, but it was a path. A new treaty will be drafted. One of mutual non-interference and respect. Earth will be recognized as a sovereign world under its own protection. Its biospheres will be inviolate. In return, humanity will continue its diplomatic and cultural exchanges. We will learn from each other. That is acceptable, June said. He offered a small, tired smile. We have much to learn from you. About the stars, about other cultures. We are curious. We always have been. The meeting continued, the details being worked out. But the important part was done. The fear in the room was slowly being replaced by a cautious, awe-filled respect. They were not making a deal with a diplomat. They were making a deal with a natural force that could smile and drink tea. After a while, June stood up. If you will excuse me, it has been a long day. They all stood as well. It was a sign of respect they had never given him before. Of course, Ambassador, Vlar said. We will have your quarters prepared. The damaged areas will be repaired. June bowed slightly. Thank you. He walked out of the room, back into the main chamber. The hole where the door had been was now covered by a temporary energy field, shimmering blue. He walked towards it, his steps slow. Workers and drones were already clearing the dust, but they stopped and moved aside as he passed. Watching him with new eyes, he stepped through the energy field. It flickered as he passed but did not fail. He was back in the long hallway. He walked alone, back the way he had come. The station was different now. The silence that greeted him was not one of dismissal, but of watchfulness. Beings peeked from doorways, not with fear of a monster, but with the awe one has for a mountain or a deep sea. They had seen the unmoving mountain walk. They had seen the deep sea become still. June did not look at them. He walked all the way back to the garden spire. The Croth were gone. The damaged plants were already being tended by gentle drones. He walked to the small stone bridge where he had been struck hours before. He looked down at the water, at his own reflection. He saw Kim June, a man from Earth, a diplomat. He also saw the shadow of the quiet ocean. It was part of him. It would always be part of him, part of all of them. It was the price they paid for survival and the guarantee of their future. He had come to the stars hoping to find friends. He had found, instead, that they had to be respected first. Perhaps, from respect, friendship could still grow. It would be slower. It would be more careful. But it was possible. He touched a flower next to the bridge, a fragile thing with petals like crystal. It did not wither. It hummed softly under his touch. He smiled. It was a real smile, warm and human. He had come to speak for a forest. In doing so, he had shown the galaxy that humanity was not weak. Their fragility was not a flaw. It was the face they chose to show because they remembered how to be kind. And the terrible strength beneath it was not for war. It was simply the will to exist, made absolute. He had finished his speech. And for the first time, the galaxy had listened.